Hi, I'm Tracy Connolly with the Genetic Society of America, and I had the privilege of working on one of the working groups for this project on Working Group A. And today we're going to talk about, just this sort of some simple things. We only have a few minutes each. I do want to say, though, that this is one of the most collaborative projects that I've ever had the privilege to be on. It's been very important that each working group had liaisons between one another and between Todd and Nettie. It's just been fabulous, like librarians and bibliometricians and all kinds of and journal publishers, and these are just some of the folks on Working Group A that have been just extremely fabulous. So the motivations, and Todd explained this at the beginning, scholarly impact is a concept that evolves over time. We are trying to get away from using sort of a reductive measure like the impact factor, like of a journal, and this is looking at the article level, really. And our goal was really to invite different stakeholders in to help work on the definitions and the use cases. Those were the two elements that my group was responsible for. And there are some caveats that we want you to keep in mind, and I think that you're going to hear over and over again, that citations, usage, and altmetrics, of course, are all potentially important and potentially imperfect. So it's really, of course, as these evolve, we refine them and use and learn how to use them differently, but it's important that there is no one perfect measure of impact. Please don't use altmetrics as an uncritical proxy for scholarly impact. Of course, we have to consider qualitative and quantitative data as well. So our charge was basically, I'm going to skip over this really quickly, we had to develop a definition for altmetrics and also use cases to define different stakeholder groups and some examples of how they would use altmetrics in their scholarship, in their work. So I just want to say that the process was one of the most discussion and research intensive projects that I've been on in a long time. When they say working group, we really worked. And in fact, there's a meeting right now that I'm missing. We could have actually had a participation session with all of you who've had it. But just so that you all know, it's just very important that you know that NISA really took into consideration a lot of opinions. So what we came up with, this is the definition that the group, after, again, many iterations, came up with. And you can see that on the documents on the NISO site. We're still in refinement. The public comment period is closed. But you can see that there's, I've highlighted some different parts of it that you'll want to look up after this, I think. The use cases are really important. We developed 8 personas, and so those ranged from, say, librarians to funding agencies to hiring committees. So how does each person look at impact and look at the alternative metrics to help define that? And so we have 3 different themes, and what we've done, just really quickly, is this is an example of one persona, and you say, what does a researcher want to do? And we basically went and documented the potential cases that they would have. So for example, and we all know this, researchers want to assess the reach, engagement with, and the research outputs. They want to know, are people seeing my stuff? And so instead of waiting for citations, alternative metrics do provide a way for them, of course, to at least get a sense of what's happening with their work. Okay, and then I think the researcher was sort of the longest persona because we had many different cases, as many of you will recognize. Even things like looking at influential research that's important or interesting in my field. So can they sort of work backwards to use alternative metrics to identify those pieces? I included a publishing editor as one of the personas to show you today because many of us in this room are editors. And there are lots of ways that we can use this information to strategically plan our own journals and publication direction. Does anyone use, I say Altmetrics, but do people use Altmetrics now to do any of these things, any of these activities? Identify authors that you want to target or papers you want to promote? Nobody? Yeah, we do, right? Now, this is the last thing I want to say is that we developed a glossary. So no definition is complete without an additional 100 terms to help you understand the definition. So it's interesting to me because I think the definition was maybe not the easiest part. I mean, you know, you have like 30 librarians and editors and data nerds kind of hashing out what the word impact means, and so we did come up with a glossary which would basically help you all to be able to use the definitions and use them consistently. I really want to again emphasize, and I use the color red because I think it's really important that we do remember that impact is subjective. And interpretations vary depending on what stakeholder you're talking about. But that's part of the beauty of having the different personas. And then a scholarly output is, I think, an interesting one because it's not just journal articles. Okay, so it talks about all the particular kinds of nouns that we have. I like the idea that it isn't just written material. It could be things like online events or software. And we do talk about traditional metrics. We define that. And then we also define like traditional usage, which we know as PDF downloads and HTML accesses. So I guess I want to close with, and one of the things I also wanted to say is that this is a fairly swift presentation. I mean, there's a lot more to the documentation that we hope that you will go ahead and look up. But we want to know what you would like to see Altmetrics measure or indicate, and thinking about like what it would take for you to incorporate Altmetrics into your own work and your own publications. And then also think about and let us know if you have particular ideas for how we might educate people to adopt the definitions and to use them consistently. So that's all I have. Thanks very much for coming, and please talk to us if you have questions. Well, just talk to Todd, really.
So we'll do questions after the three speakers.